Hello, it's Weekend Handicapper from weekendhandicapper.com. In this video, we're going to provide a recap of the 2020 Kentucky Derby. Thanks to David Vasquez for this suggestion for this video. I appreciate you tuning in. And I appreciate everybody watching these videos, and hopefully you're learning how to bet on horses, learning more about the sport of horse racing, and how to make money betting on horse racing. So if you want to learn how to bet on horses, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you can get all the latest tips, tools, and resources. Help you win money on thoroughbred horse racing. All right, so the 2020 Kentucky Derby finally arrived. It finally happened. We didn't have no drama like we did in 2019, but I think the race was fairly formful. What I mean by that is I think it was the three lowest odds horses finished in the top 4 positions. That's pretty formful. And anybody, I always say this is like, if this is purely gambling, if this is roll the dice, scratching off lottery tickets, pulling a slot machine or pushing a button on a slot machine type of gambling, you wouldn't have these formful finishes, where the most bet horses, the lowest odds horses, finish pretty well. So let's look at the race. Let's hopefully find some ways, because you always want to get in the habit of this, win or lose, learn from each race. Either, and I still do this, learn from your mistakes, what you did wrong in a race, if you didn't get the race right. And if you got the race right, know why you got it. What good decisions did you make? What angles did you use? What kind of smart wagers did you make based on those angles that you discovered? You always want to take something away from each race that you bet. And when you look back on the race, in this case, Kentucky Derby, I think there's several things we could take away from and use them and apply them to future races that you handicap. So let's start by looking at the favorite. Typically, I always start when I'm handicapping and when I'm reviewing a race. How well the favorite's going to do. Is the favorite legit, or can the favorite get beat? You always want to make those cases. You're either on board with the favorite and you skip the race, or you accept those low odds and you bet that horse at those odds, or you try to beat the favorite. And this year, we had a heavy favorite, especially for the Derby. That's ridiculous. 3 to 5 morning line. I mean, I guess I'm not saying it was a bad morning line, because the horse was rolling all year long. But to put money on a low price horse like that, that's tough. That's tough to do. That's usually not how I played, not most successful horse players I ever came across, and handicappers I ever met. They don't get in the habit of betting those kind of horses for the win position. They might use them in exotics, but not in the win position. All right, so how did Tiz the Law do? Not bad. Now, considering it was a heavy favorite and supposed to win, I guess it didn't do well. But it came in second. No shame in that. The horse has been running lights out all year long, and so I can understand why it was the favorite. But from a betting perspective, I thought it was a good opportunity to bet against that horse. And here's why. Or when looking back, here's how we're going to evaluate Tiz the Law. Well, first off, Tiz the Law had no excuses. He had no excuses. If you're looking for some excuses or reason he didn't win, maybe it's because he don't like Churchill Downs. The horse has only lost twice, and both of those races were at Churchill Downs. So in handicapping, there's an angle called horse for course, which applies to horses who do really well and had some of their greatest success at certain tracks. Horse for course is even spilled over into popular culture and mainstream talk. We use that term a lot. Even in sports, like Tiger Woods at Torrey Pines back in the day used to win. Well, he used to win everywhere, it seemed like. But especially at Torrey Pines, like the Tiger showed up, you might as well keep your clubs in the trunk of your car. your rental car or your car, because don't even tee it up if Tiger's at Torrey Pines. That's how much he dominated. So he was, quote unquote, a horse for course at Torrey Pines. He just did really well. Well, maybe you can make the case that Tiz the Law is not a horse for course at Churchill Downs, because he hasn't won at Churchill Downs. But he's did all right, and he finished second in the Kentucky Derby. Wasn't a bad trip. No excuses for Tiz the Law, in my opinion. I'm sure if you had money on Tiz the Law, you could find something, some reason maybe that it didn't win, but it just didn't win. That happens in horse race. I don't care if you're a 30-1 long shot or a 3-5 favorite. Horses don't win all the time. And it doesn't have to be a reason. He just got beat. Got beat by a better horse on a particular day. So there's no shame in Tiz the Law finishing second. I'm sure he'll be back. I'm sure he'll have success. And I'm sure I'll bet him if he's not ridiculous low odds. But I doubt if that ever happened. We'll get some value on Tiz the Law. So Tiz the Law shouldn't hang your head. Just got beat. No bad trip. Maybe you didn't like the track, but you still came in second, so I'll have a hard time buying that argument. And just got beat by a better horse. And some people might say, well, it was because he had that outside post position. Well, that doesn't make sense, because the horse that won had an even more outside post position, and that horse is Authentic. Did really well. Very, very impressive because it wired the field. Typically, you don't see that in the Kentucky Derby. Early speed horses, we're talking about front runners, like right on the front end. They do okay, but they don't typically win. Usually more off the pace, just a little bit off the pace, wins the Kentucky Derby. So Authentic ran around that track and got it done. Some people weren't too high on Authentic because they didn't think the horse could get the distance. Well, in my opinion, when I'm betting horses, especially 8-1 morning line, and you can check out my Kentucky Derby picks and analysis video, Authentic was one of those that I bet, fortunately. Now, the thing how I play horses is, yeah, being competitive at a certain distance, will it get the distance? That's a factor, but the odds determines the bet. So what I mean is 9-5, if Authentic was 9-5 and you didn't think it could get the distance, probably no bet, but 8-1, try it. Because you don't know if you always hear this bred for distance and all that. Well, yeah, there's some validity to that, but that's not a cut and dry thing. And you don't know how a horse is going to get the distance till it actually runs it. And at the right price, the right odds, it's worth the gamble if it can get the distance. You don't want to be wrong and a horse pays whatever it paid, $18 for $2 or whatever. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's what it paid, 18 something. You don't want to be, it got the distance, and you were out of some decent profits. So that was one knock on Authentic. Couldn't get the distance, but it got the distance, and it held off Tiz the Law, and it won from the far out post position. Now, here's something to really think about. Really think about this in this year's Kentucky Derby. And you can watch videos I've done about the Kentucky Derby in the past. Typically, people aren't too high on horses that start from the far outside. But here's a little caveat to this in this year's Kentucky Derby. It's a field of 20 normally. So normally, those horses are way on the outside. But you had 5 scratches in this year's Kentucky Derby. So what normally is a 20-horse field got reduced to 15 horses. So being on the outside is still being on the outside. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as bad as normal years where you're even 4 horses wider when you start. Okay, so that might have helped those outside horses, or not helped, but it didn't hurt those horses being on the outside. Another thing, reason Authentic might have won, other than just being on its game and did good and it improved, is the pace scenario. Those that watch my videos probably get a sense I'm a big pace handicapper. I love pace. I think it plays a huge role in how the outcome of races are going to result in. And the race shape, we call it. So how many front runners you got? How many horses are going to be closing in? Well, I think Authentic benefited from those scratches. And here's why. One horse that I really liked but got scratched even before the Kentucky Derby was Art Collector. Art Collector has done really well this year, made me some pretty good, result in some pretty good wagers for me. You can check out the videos for that over this year. So I was ready to bet Art Collector in the Kentucky Derby, but had some physical issues, got scratched for the Kentucky Derby. But that horse had some upfront speed a little bit. Another horse that I really liked on Kentucky Derby Day that wasn't scratched until, a few days before the Derby, the week of the Derby, was King Gaelimo. King Gaelimo, even though it hadn't raced since March of 2020, it's certainly a front-running horse, and it would have been right out there with Authentic, and they might have wore each other out. So the scratch of King Gaelimo, scratch of Art Collector helped out Authentic. Then right before the race, in the paddock, 1,000 Words got a little crazy and flipped, and it was scratched. It had some pace on it. So all those horses that got scratched, I think, helped Authentic's pace scenario. So basically, that horse was able to control the speed. So when you're going to handicap future races, always think about the pace scenario and how the race is going to set up. Especially when, I get excited, just like I got excited a little bit. It's hard to do in the Derby because there's so many factors going against you. But in normal races, if you like an early speed horse or a horse that likes to be on the front end and it's competition, the only other early speed horses get scratched, then, and if your odds stay, decent, then that's a heck of a bet. I would much rather put my money on an early speed horse or a horse that likes to be near the front than a closer. Yeah, there's some great closers. The super talented horses, Zenyatta comes to mind, that their preferred running style is to mow down, but you've got to be really good to mow down other really good horses. So you always, in my opinion, you want to be betting on the horses on the front end if there's not much pace, because they have an advantage. Of course, I can do more videos about pace handicapping and how early speed horses, too many of them, benefit the closers. That makes sense. But in this case, not many early speed horses. Authentic basically got out front and wired the field. So I think the scratches of those other horses helped Authentic out. Now, we always have these kind of horses that screw up my tickets, my exotic tickets. This year is Mr. Big News. So congrats to, if any of y'all had that horse, hey, congrats. I couldn't make a case for it, but every year it seems like one of those horses blow up my tickets, my exotic tickets. So we had it again. Horses, big long shots that you have a hard time making a case for. And then one final lesson that you might want to take away, especially when it comes to the Kentucky Derby, in my How to Bet the Kentucky Derby video, you can check it out. I kind of mentioned this, like I've mentioned some of these other angles that proved to be effective again this year, is when you bet the Kentucky Derby, usually big name trainers and big name riders get it done. And this year was no exception. What else is new? Bob Baffert won another Kentucky Derby. He tied the record with 6 Kentucky Derbies. So he knows how to get horses prepared for this particular race, no matter if it's in May, no matter if it's in September. But you also had Hall of Fame jockey John Velasquez getting it done. Good ride, no doubt. He gave him a Hall of Fame ride. I don't know if I should say Hall of Fame ride, but a good ride. And that's what you want. You want big name, talented riders that knows what's going on, how to control their horses, how to time it when, in terms of pace. It was just a beautiful ride. That's what you want. When you have a jockey on board, you want to be confident that jockey's not going to, succumb to the moment and the moment's too big for him. Johnny V got it done. Just like, when you're a bettor on horses, you see certain jockeys on board, that's another positive factor. Doesn't mean the horse is going to win, but it's rare that a horse is going to lose because the jockey gave it a bad ride, if you have confidence in that jockey. So Hall of Fame trainer, big name trainer, Hall of Fame jockey, plus a good horse usually will put you in good shape and give you a really good chance of winning whatever race you're going to bet, especially the Kentucky Derby. All right, because the moment's not, they've been there before, and they act like they've been there before, and they take care of business. So I love, especially jockeys. I see on Twitter, I see, on posts and comments, people just letting jockeys have it all the time. It's almost like a no-win job. And people certainly criticize Johnny V here lately, and maybe rightfully so. Maybe some of those races he didn't do a good job or do what the handicapper thought they should, the jockey should do or ride the horse the way they wanted it. But so it's good to see John Velasquez have some success. He seems like a really good guy, and he's certainly a Hall of Fame jockey. So there you go. Tislaw didn't win. I don't think we have to look too much into it other than he just got beat, right? Maybe he would have won in May if it happened in May. Maybe not. We'll never know. Just got beat. Maybe didn't like the track. The fact is he's 3-5. Try to beat a 3-5 shot all the time. Wasn't much trouble. Yeah, some say Honor AP had a little trouble leaving the gate, and he would have finished higher than 4th if he didn't have that trouble and didn't stuck at the back of the pack and have to close in. There's always going to be trouble in Kentucky Derby. You got to get lucky in the Kentucky Derby and have a good trip. But overall, it was fairly formful, and your most logical horses finished where they were supposed to, near the front. Authentic, shouldn't take anything away from Authentic. It got out there. It paced itself really well, and it got the distance at a decent price, so that's good. The big long shot was Mr. Big News, and then you had a Hall of Fame jockey, Hall of Fame trainer getting it done. So when you go to handicap your races in the future, use some of these lessons. Don't bet heavy favorites, or don't make a habit of betting heavy favorites win position. Maybe use them in your exactas, trifectas, superfectas, but not win positions, win bets. Don't be afraid to bet early speed horses if there's no other early speed horses around, or not too many of them at least. Always look for those horses that nobody else will have, Mr. Big News, especially in the Derby. And if you have a good horse that's at decent odds, that is trained by a really good trainer and ridden by a really good jockey, that's a pretty good bet. So I can't wait for the Preakness. The Preakness is going to be exciting. Hopefully I don't know if Tiz the Law will be there. He might skip it, the last I heard. But if Tiz the Law shows up, our collector's supposed to show up. A lot of these horses, except Honor AP's been retired, but Authentic's going to be there. 1,000 Words, if he acts right, should be there. Should be a real, and then you got some new horses coming in there that didn't race in the Derby, and it's going to be a good Preakness. I'm excited. Always look forward to the Preakness. I do well handicapping the Preakness. You can check out some of those videos in the past of my Preakness videos, but I love the Preakness. I'm from Kentucky, but it's right up there with the Derby as far as handicapping it, because I've done pretty well in. I'm sure that plays a factor in. But it's more like a normal horse race. It's not this 20-horse chaotic race like the Derby is. So it's fairly formful in a lot of ways. Sticks to, you can really apply handicapping skills and angles to that race more than the Derby. You can the Derby too, don't get me wrong, but when they leave the gate, it's almost like rolling the dice. Hopefully they get a good trip. So I'm excited about the Preakness. Be looking for my Preakness video that's getting ready to come out about the contenders in this year's Preakness. And hopefully this video has been helpful to look back on. The main thing when you look back on horse races is how do you learn from it? How does it, maybe the lessons and what you learn from that race helps you as a handicapper and horse player in the future. Always get in the habit of taking at least a couple things away from each race. What you did right, what you did wrong, how you can improve next time. And that's one of the names of the game to being a successful bettor on horses. All right, so until next time, happy handicapping, smart wagering.